everybody, welcome back. Today, okay, someone gave this recommendation and I thought it was a cute idea. So we're gonna do a little starfish. You can tell they're a little different. You can sketch it any way you want. Here are the supplies we're gonna need. So for this one, any kind of a pencil will do. This is just like a little mechanical pencil, but I'm gonna use this as my eraser, a little kneaded eraser. It's nice because it doesn't leave shavings on your paper. And then this is my Winsor & Newton size 10 round watercolor brush. I love it because it has a great tip on the end, and it also has the belly, which is a pretty good size, which can hold a lot of water. Oh, I just ran up the stairs. I'm out of breath. Okay, so here is another thing that we're going to use today, if you have one. If you have one, great. If you don't, you might just want to I'll tell you how you can adapt this lesson anyway, and maybe later on you pick one up. So just a little white crayon. You can also get I don't know, probably like a wax watercolor resist, but to me and in classes, it's just easy to do it this way. So, and then we've got our paper. Our paper is, for me, it's 3 inches by 3 inches, and this is 140-pound cold press Canson watercolor paper. Then I have my paints, which are here. This is what mine look like, and I can link those as well. They're just a really nice, easy to use watercolor set. I use these in local classes as well, and everybody kind of loves them. So, and then I've got water, and I've got a towel, but you can use paper towel as well, because you're gonna need that too. So for now, I'm moving everything out of the way except for my pencil and my eraser. Notice I said and eraser. You're gonna draw and erase both, okay? That's kind of how it works. And so that's why we've got the eraser. And one thing to keep in mind when you're drawing is just press really lightly with your pencil. If you're squeezing it tight, you might be pressing hard. And in general, we just want it as light as we can so we can really freely move things around. So you can tell I've got 2 different shapes here. You can do anything you want. I am going to use, I think, let's see, this one. And you notice I just flipped it around. I wanted to find which direction I can see the top, kind of like, this one being in the center. And this is funny, but to me, I kind of, for stars, go this is the head, these are the feet, these are the arms. And also, you should be able to kind of turn it and still see that same shape all along the way. So for this one, I kind of want to start with this triangle right here and noticing look how much space we have in the center of this shape. We don't want to bring this all the way down to here. We would barely have anything to work with in the middle. So let's see, if I put my finger here next to it, it's kind of the end of my finger to this first line is the top. So I'll put a little dot to start with, and then I want to turn this into a triangle. And do you notice you can hardly see my pencil? I'll zoom in for you, but for all of us, let's press lightly. Some kind of triangle here. And then I'm going to kind of put the arms, think of them as arms, come out like this. From here, what I actually like to do a lot of the times is turn my paper. And now look, I want to change this line because I want it to be the head, right? And these to be the arms. I don't care that this is perfectly in the center of my paper. You can tell already that it's not, and that's okay. And I'm going to go like this. And once again, I need to pull this one over this way a little. I'm changing this line and moving it here because I want it to be like this. Now, if I look at this when we're done and I'm like, ooh, that whole thing is wonky, I'm going to move it. And you are too, okay? So maybe a little further because we have the start of 1, 2, 3, 4, and we need a 5th one. So I'm just, see how sketchy I am about it? I just want to like it. So I get here, and I've got to connect these. And to me, it seems like it should end here, not here. So I am adjusting. And now I can get up my eraser, and I'll get rid of these lines, these extra lines right off the bat. Anything that I didn't end up using. And I don't want to have 3 lines on each spot though. So now I'm going to just sort of find it based on what I've sketched. If you wanted it to be like this one that really is just sort of triangles that are rounded at the ends, great. If you want to curve them a little bit, one of them could curve in, another could curve, they're kind of, this is going to the right, these are going clockwise a little bit. And then this one isn't. So some things that you can kind of look at with that. But for me, let's see, I'm going to go pretty like basic star, and then I will turn a few of them so that it looks more like starfish than gold star on your paper. So you see that? I curved the ends. And because I press lightly, I know I can just shift some things around. Love it. I don't know. I'm going to take this one the other way a little. So I corrected it first, then erased. Sometimes if you erase first, you're just going to do the same thing you just did. And I corrected this one, so I'll get rid of that pencil mark. There we go. And then one more. So I guess what I'm finding is I like these ends just curved just a little. Gives a little something. And that's pretty much good enough. Now, if your pencil got really dark anywhere, we can just take this kneaded eraser and just kind of lighten it up. It doesn't matter if you see pencil later. I like seeing it, but some people don't. So if you paint watercolor paint over your pencil, you won't be able to erase it. So anything you don't want to see, we'll get rid of right now. So now, next, we're actually going to get into, usually it's like, okay, we're done with our sketch. Let's make our paints. But today, I'm going to zoom back in. You'll see that if you look up close at these, they have all these little white marks in here. And what's happening with the crayon is that it's putting a resist there that is keeping the watercolor paper from absorbing the paint. And you can't paint over it because it's not absorbent, right? But it's just so easy to use. So then I did it here, and you can tell I marked a little wider here. It doesn't matter, but what we're doing is sort of running some markings down the center of each of these. So let's get to here. And what I liked to do is, and look, my crayon isn't even sharp. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't want you to either. But I'm going to put a bunch of these all in the center. See, it's so tricky because you can't see what I'm doing, and neither can I until maybe if I turn my paper. Even now I really can't see what I did. So that's why I put a bunch of them here instead of trying to find a perfect center. And then I'll just take this, and I need to make sure I'm pressing down. You're going to want to count. So there's 5 of them. So this is the first one. And I'm just, lines, little hatches down the center all the way towards the tip. I'm going to turn it. That was 1, 2. So count yours off too. And try to start from that center. And you can curve it with it if you want. Use the outside lines here as your guide. I already lost my count. I think this is 5. What's tricky with crayon is that, like, if you, let's say I only did 4, this one's not going to have those white marks, and I won't know it until later. Yeah, and I really can't see it, so try to pay attention when you do this. It is kind of tricky, but we're going to call it good. And I won't. I'll add a couple more to the center just so I make sure there's enough. And now I'm going to move my pencil, my crayon, and my eraser out of the way, and we are going to make up our paints. So zooming out a little bit, this is my paint set. Just whatever you've got, we're just going to make up some colors. The reason I went with sort of these colors is like this had warmth, and I wanted to do something that looked like water behind it, which would be a cool color. So my only purpose in choosing my colors was warm against cool. And I think we can kind of play within that. So let's start with our starfish colors. I'm gonna pull my water over here. Okay. And I'm getting my brush wet in my water first, and then I'm gonna come, and for me, it's some combo of these type of colors. So if you just have one orange, that's totally fine. You'll grab your orange, okay, with your wet paintbrush, swipe it onto here. I'm gonna, I already know that's pretty bright, so I'm actually gonna take the rest. I cleaned my brush out in my water, and I'm gonna add more water to this. And wow, I've got this really bold orange color. I wanna tone it down a little, so I'm gonna add some darker orange. You also could add brown to it if you wanted, just to kind of change it up. Like I'll get into here in the brown. And I wanna kind of neutralize it a bit, just let it chill out. Okay. Sure, I kind of like that. It just doesn't matter too much. Here, I'm going to add a little more water. No, I don't like it. I'm going to add pink. So you play with your color and notice what I'm doing. I'm making sure I like it. Okay, and this is where I'm looking at that color. It's good enough for me. So I'm going to take my brush, and I cleaned it. I'm going to dry it on my towel a little because I don't want to come here with a bunch of water. So you can see I've been using my paints, and they have like water on the top of them. So this, I know I can get a good amount of water and paint. I'm going to give us a little pile of pink here. If you don't have pink, do red, and I'm gonna do red as well. I wanna give us some little puddles to play with on the body of that starfish. So if you notice, like, the colors really change. On this one, I put a bunch of orange later on while it was still wet in the middle. I didn't do the same here, but when we place this darker color, we're gonna place it on these edges and kind of next to, on either side of, our white markings. So got this. I think I do want some sort of like a, I don't know, yellowish orange color, I guess. So I'm gonna, and then I want it kind of light. So I'm adding some water. We always, to get our colors lighter in watercolor, we add water. So that's a nice simple way. So I got some puddles to play with here. I feel like I want something else. Do you see how it almost gets into like purple? This is a pinkish purple. So I'm gonna grab from down here. If you've got this set, it'll be a combo of the bottom center and the top left. And I'll just get this really kind of pretty magenta color, and I don't want much water in it. And how I know how to make these puddles right here is, like, if my main shape is gonna be one color, I need a little more paint for that. But if I'm going to start with that and paint it, this will be wet on wet technique, then every color I add after, I don't need so much water for. So I want tiny puddles so I can really control how far that paint goes into my shape, okay? So something like this, but I'm going to tell you, once you make your puddles, you're not limited to your puddles. You can use your puddles and your paints always. And the reason you're choosing between them is these have some water, these have less. So if you need less water, you'll take from paints, okay? We've got this, you know, if you want other colors in there, go for it. And let's make up this one at the same time, just so we've got it ready, but we will dry everything before we get to our cool colors. So I'm cleaning my brush out fully, and for me, the fourth one up from the bottom right is a bluish green. And I really like that one, but it's not blue enough, so I'll add some blue. So if you've got a kind of basic set with, you know, 6 or 8 colors in it, maybe a blue and a green together might get you the color you want, but that's up to you. It's artist's choice, right? And from here, notice I played with color a little bit and added some other things into here. So I'm going to clean my brush, and without too much water, I'm going to make a little puddle of this bright green. Any color you have. If you don't have a bright green, you could do like a mix a yellow and a green together to get it. And I think I'll get one more puddle. For me, this is just going to be like a blue. That I know I can sort of add into it later. So just whatever, we're playing. And this is the kind of thing, like, do a whole page of these, you know, and then you'll decide what you like in the end. So I'm gonna move these out of the way. We've got our puddles ready. Let's do it. Okay, what's funny is, like, we do have white marks all over this. We just can't see them. And when you first start painting, you might not see them either. But my brush is, I cleaned it, I dried it a little, and when I say dry it, I am like literally like wiping it on my towel. That's it. But I'm going to get into this main color that I chose, and you'll use the tip of your brush to run along the edges. But see, I'm also leaning into the belly of the brush so that I'm painting somewhat efficiently, because watercolor is about timing, because you're working with water and water dries. And while it's wet, you get to play with it. So this is called a wet on wet technique. And I am just filling it in light on the tip of my brush around these edges, right? It's pressure, so less pressure. There we go, I got the whole thing filled in. I can't see all of the white marks, but sometimes it's just because it's puddled above them. So I'm going to dry my brush off, and I'm gonna actually just lift a little bit of this off, and now you can see those white spots. But we do want it to be wet, so if you take any off, it still needs to be where you can see the light reflecting, okay? Then we'll get into these other puddles just for fun. See, there's very little water now. I did not add water. And I'm going to run this along the edges. So there's a couple things I want to do. I want to add dimension by running along the edges, the two sides like this. And I'm doing this somewhat quickly because water dries. Okay, so I'm running along these sides. If your paint, this darker color, is going really far, you have too much water. And if it's not blending at all, that means it's probably already dried and you need more water, so you can try to adjust. But I'm gonna take this and also get some dimension on either side. See that? And I have very little water right now because I already had water on my paper. But I wanna run this on either side of this, which will give us the impression that these white markings that we're seeing are sort of raised, and that this is maybe a shadow on the sides. I'm going to clean my brush out because I just want to play with another color. Some of this pink, I just like mixed my pink and red together. And I think I'll put some of that in these corners. But you can just play. But think darker colors are kind of where there might be a shadow, lighter colors are maybe where there's less of a shadow, or the sun is maybe putting a highlight. You don't have to worry about that thought much. Also, okay, I'm looking at it now. Whole thing is shiny and reflective. So guess what I want to do? I want to add some of this yellow right to the center. You do not need to do this. It's a little risky of a move, right? Because it depends on how much water you have, where it's going to go. But it felt kind of good to me. So I'm going to zoom in here. I probably should have been zooming in. Sorry about that. Okay, but here's what it's looking like so far. And you can see, I think I'm done with my color. I'm going to tip it just a little. It's all still shiny. So if yours isn't, that might be a clue that you needed just a little bit more water. I'm just adding a little water right there. I like it. I don't have to be done yet. I can look at it for a minute. And if I wanted to add more, I could. I just made another little puddle here, and do you see how dry it is? It's pretty dry, but this is still wet. So I'm gonna reinforce it a little bit by going on either side. So your playtime is while it's wet. When it's dry, you move on to glazing, which means you're going to work on top of it, which means you'll have hard lines, which is great. It's just a different thing. That's almost too much structure, huh? I cleaned my brush, I dried it, and if I want to mess that up a little, I could touch my wet brush to it and see what happens. But it's so much of this is about observation, because I'm telling you how to do this, right? But yours will be different. Yours will be slightly different. It just will be. Okay, so at this point, we want to get into the background and do the background, but we need this to fully dry. Otherwise, our colors will bleed. So I'm going to stop for a minute. I'm going to get out a little craft heat gun, or you can use a hair dryer, or you can just wait, and then we'll do the background. I gave it a good dry, and so now the reason I know it's dry is I don't see the light reflecting anymore. And if your paper curls up, you can roll it gently backwards a little bit, and it'll straighten out a bit. Now for the background, same thing. It's wet on wet again, which means we're going to start with, I made this bigger puddle for my background, and I'll use these ones to tap in color just to give some variety. And you can see that on both of these, they turned out a little different. This one was a little wetter, I can tell, because the colors spread a little further. This was a little drier somehow, either on the background or with what I was placing in. Somewhere there was less water, so these little bits just didn't go quite as far. So that's something to kind of think about as you go. I'm going to, I just cleaned out my brush, tapped it on my towel a little bit. I'm going to grab this color, and I want to just kind of get into all of these. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. Into all of these corners. I want to get all the way to the starfish. Sorry for that shaky camera. I want to get all the way into that starfish, because if I leave white space between, you're going to see it later on, right? And so I'm working quickly because I want it to stay wet everywhere that I want to play in it. So light on the tip of your brush when you need to get around these spaces. You can turn your paper to make it easier. I've got mine like this. I'm gonna clean my brush out. I dried it on my towel, remember, just like this. 1, 2. And then with the water that's still on it, I'm gonna run my brush along this edge, which will give us just more of a soft little fade out, you know, like this. And right there, I notice I didn't get in. I'm gonna get it. Okay, it's all wet, so I gotta keep working. I'm gonna grab this bright green, which I like, and I'm just gonna put bits of it in here. I also do like, this is another thing I probably did on one, is I pulled it all the way next to this instead of just doing dots. To me, there's a little more like continuity in it. And then a couple here and there. Maybe be done with that one. Clean my brush out, dry it again, 1, 2. And then I'm gonna get my other blue color that I got and just do some little chunks of that too. This is the kind of thing, do it a couple times though. Get one you really love. But you're watching what happens. You're playing and watching what happens. Oh, how did I do that? So this time what happened was my blue got on top of here. So I quickly dried my brush and kind of tried to lift it. I dried my brush on my towel, right there, grabbed it. But I kind of want to break this up a little. So I'm just taking my brush with a little bit of that base color on it and just messing with it. So watch what happens. Okay, we're at this point. You could try it again if you want, but there's one thing I want to show you that I did on one and not the other. If you look at these two, do you notice that the little white markings along the middle, this one doesn't have a shadow, this one does. And by shadow, what I mean is a tiny little darker spot right sort of under it. That's all I did. If you look up close, right underneath of each crayon mark, I did boop, bop, 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 just little dots, okay? I didn't do it on this one because that's up to you. Do you like it? If you like it, do it. If not, leave it this way. So I'm gonna put these here, and I can't bump any of my blue paint, okay? But I'm going to grab, I'm going to show you how little this is. Whatever it is that I grab, that's too bright for me. I'm cleaning my brush out. I want something here. I added a little bit of brown to it. This is how tiny my puddle is. Like I could be working from this. Very tiny, very little water. And I'm going to use my little white markings as a guide, and under each, just swipe, swipe, swipe. Just these tiny, I might go to the right of them over here. That's up to you. And under each of these, I'm finding it. Like some of these are bigger marks. Just kind of get them in there somewhat consistent. And what it's going to look like is a highlight where it lumps up and then a little shadow because, you know, the sun would catch them. Isn't this so cute? And up here, I don't see white marks. I'm just going to add a couple of these anyway for consistency. Maybe another one over here. And you've got yourself a starfish. I always love to sign it. If you've got a little felt tip pen or any kind of pen, you can sign it that way. And I would love for you to share with me your work. I love seeing what you guys do. Also, if you want to, I think there should be like a bell that you ring to see more notifications when I post new artwork, which is every Wednesday right now, but we'll have a whole challenge in Inktober. 30 days. 30 days of videos that will be really fun to do. And subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thanks for hanging out with me, you guys.